If you can understand this equation when you're young, you will never have to worry about money past the age of 40. Take a look. You go to work to get money. This money can buy you assets. These assets bring you wealth, and this wealth is what brings you freedom. The problem is, especially with younger people, is you work to get money, then you use this money not to buy assets, but to buy what I call DS. What is DS? Dumb stuff. And the reality is that there are 7 things that are killing your wealth faster than you going to Chipotle and buying the extra guac, which I'm going to be going over in this video. So without wasting any further time, let's start with number 1, your car. The average new car payment in America today is $735, and the average used car payment is $523. And the crazy part is that this is just your car payment. This does not include your premium gas, because now you're driving a luxury car. It does not include your more expensive insurance, because now you have a more expensive car. And this does not include your more expensive maintenance, because that maintenance on your BMW is a whole lot more expensive than my maintenance on my Toyota. Now, I don't have a problem if you go out and buy a new car. I don't have a problem if you go out and you buy an expensive car. I do have a problem though when you go out and you buy a car that you can't afford, and then you struggle with money and you wonder why you're struggling to build wealth or get rich. So let's go through a hypothetical example. Let's assume that you are 25 years old right now. You go out and you put $8,000 down to get yourself a brand new BMW, because everybody's got a nice BMW nowadays. And now you take this $8,000, you get yourself a nice $55,000 car, maybe even a $45,000 car, depending on what it is. And now you got these expensive car payments that you're going to be paying for the next number of years. Now, after 5 years to pay off the car, and you might think that you're going to be car payment free, but what ends up happening to everybody in this situation is you feel weird without a car payment. So now you trade it in, you get a new car, you put down a bigger down payment, and now you start the payment game all over again, and your payments don't go down, your payments go up because cars get more expensive, you start making more money, you want to have a nicer car. You go from the 3 Series to the 4 Series, the 4 Series to the 5 Series, and then you go from the 5 Series to the 7 Series because nobody wants to drive around in the 6 Series for some reason. But I'm going to flip the script a little bit differently than what I've done in the past, because what I've done in the past is I've said, well, what if instead of you taking this $8,000 and using it as a down payment, you use this to buy a used Toyota Corolla or a used Toyota Camry, and then you invest this payment instead. If you did that, you would retire a millionaire. But let's not talk about that. Instead, let's say, you take this $8,000 when you're 25 years old, and instead of using this as a down payment for a BMW, you take this $8,000 and you use this as a down payment for your investment. You put this money into the stock market, into the S&P 500, which over the last 70 years has averaged a 10% return a year. That's actually a little bit higher than 10% a year, but let's just stick with 10% a year. And now you do this until you retire. So you're 25 right now, you want to retire when you are 67. So you do this for 42 years. Well, if you do this and you never invest another penny again, let me make sure that's clear. You invest this $8,000 at the age of 25, you never invest another penny again, and you let this $8,000 sit there and compound. If you do that, you're gonna retire with more than $430,000 in your account, assuming you never invest another penny after this $8,000. Instead, one of the best things that you can do, I'm talking from experience here, is to use your 20s, I don't care how much money you make, to drive a beat down car. And then when you're in your 30s, you buy a little bit of a nicer car with cash. Because now you can use this time in your 20s to invest as aggressively as possible, let this money start compounding and growing, and then when you're in your 30s, you'll be able to afford a nicer car without having to worry about the money. How am I speaking from experience here? Because throughout my 20s, even though I was making good money, I was driving around in a beat down Toyota Solara with multiple rims on the car, with no bumper towards the end of my 20s, because I was using that money to invest aggressively. And by the way, for those of you that have been following my car journey, I just upgraded my car to a brand new Toyota RAV4. I was looking at getting a used Toyota RAV4, but I ended up getting a new one because the price of a new versus a used RAV4 was almost the exact same. Wealth killer number 2 is your watch. Do you want to know why the watch industry has been so profitable, especially recently? Now you might say it's because watches have huge margins, which they do, especially if you're talking about a luxury watch. But that's not what I'm talking about. The reason why the watch industry has been so profitable is because after the jeweler sells you the watch, they're now also selling the financing for you to pay for that watch. It's a win-win-win for the jeweler. Number one, there's a win for the jeweler because they get a sale. Number two, it's another win for the jeweler because now they get to sell this watch to somebody that can't afford it. And number three, it's a third win for the jeweler because now they get to sell you the interest on that exact same watch, so they get to make money twice. The problem with this is that watch prices don't always go up. If you've been reading market briefs, you know that Rolex prices have been falling steadily. Why? Because as money has become tighter, people are also tightening up their budgets and they're not spending as frivolously as they did when stimulus checks are going out. And so now we've seen Rolex prices fall because of that. By the way, if you want to stay up to date on what is happening in the financial markets when they are happening, Market Briefs is a free financial newsletter that I created to keep you up to date on what's happening in things like the economy, the housing market, the stock market, crypto, and the global economy into a fun, witty, and easy to read newsletter. You can read Market Briefs in less than 5 minutes every morning, and it's completely free. So if you have not joined Market Briefs yet, I got the link to how you can join down in the description below. The third wealth killer in your 20s is vacations. Read this line from Business Insider. 47% of millennials were willing to take on debt to fund summer travel versus Gen Z trailed close behind with 42%. Almost half of young people are willing to take on debt to fund traveling, to fund a vacation to Cancun. The problem with that is that vacation to Cancun isn't putting any money in your pocket. Well, what people are saying is if I can go to Cancun, I can relax and unwind. That way I can come back to work ready to go. The problem is Cancun isn't depositing any money in your bank account. So what ends up happening is you swipe your credit card, that way you can relax and unwind. You go to Cancun, you have a great time, you relax and unwind, you get home, and when you get home, you got the credit card bill in the mail which says you owe $10,000 which you don't have, and now you get stressed again. And you need to go on another vacation to relax and unwind from the new stress that you just got from your previous vacation. If you want to relax and unwind and not have to worry about the price, here's what you do if you can't afford it. Open up the back door, put a seat over there, and relax and unwind without having to pay the price. Because if you cannot afford to go to Cancun with cash, you should not be going to Cancun with cash. I get it. Everybody's doing it nowadays. On Instagram, on TikTok, everybody's talking about these crazy lavish vacations. It's crazy how many young people are going all over the world, to the Maldives, to Bali, to Bora Bora, to all these places that you've never even heard of before. But the reality is, if you can't afford it, don't be the one that's going there making everybody else rich, because then you're going to spend the rest of your 30s, your 40s, and your 50s paying off your vacations in your 20s. Wealth killer number 4 are your designer clothes. Do you know who is arguably the richest person in the world? It's Bernard Arnault, who is the CEO and founder of LVMH. What's LVMH? Well, that's the company that owns Louis Vuitton, Dior, Tiffany, Fendi. And this begs the question, how did he become the richest person in the world? Well, people pay him so they can look rich. What does that mean? People would rather look rich than be rich. How do I know that? If you remember back in 2020, 2021, when we had that free money, stimulus checks were going out, unemployment checks were going out, people had a lot of extra cash in their pockets. And we were in a recession. If you remember, we were in a recession in 2020, 2021. Well, during that recession, luxury sales of Louis Vuitton and other brands like that were breaking record sales, record profits during this recession. People got free money, and what did they do? Well, we went to the Louis Vuitton store and we got ourselves a new bag, a new purse, or a new wardrobe. You buying these luxury clothes does not make you rich. It makes you look rich, and it makes Bernard Arnault rich, and it makes the other investors in these fashion companies rich. So if you want to get rich, use your money smartly first. That way you can buy all the luxury stuff you want without having to worry about the price. Number 5 is bad family planning, and this is supposed to be a bottle. According to the data, it costs somewhere between $15,000 to $17,000 per year to raise a child. This is an average. Some people it's going to cost way more. Some people it's going to cost way less. The reality here is if you want to have kids, it's going to cost money. You got to pay for healthcare, you got to pay for diapers, got to pay for milk, got to pay for baby food, got to pay for strollers, and a lot of other things. And if you don't have the money for that, then you're going to put it on your credit card. Which means that when your kid goes to college, you're not going to be able to fund their student loans. You're going to ask them for money to pay for your credit card bill. And so if you want to avoid all that headache, wait to have kids until you got the money to have kids. Get your money right first. And that can be a hard thing to say, but this is where you want to start thinking about how you're actually going to afford this. And it's not just kids. It's also who are you going to pick as your partner. If you're a guy, who are you going to pick as your wife? If you're a girl, who are you going to pick as your husband? What type of person are you going to pick? Because if that person is not good and you get a divorce, that divorce can end up costing you a whole lot of money. As an attorney who's not your attorney, what I can tell you is that divorces are expensive. I don't care if you have a prenup or not, they're going to be expensive. And if you don't think through these things early on, if you don't find a good partner who's going to support you, it can end up costing you a whole lot more in the future. Now, I get it, things happen. Things can happen that you don't expect. You can't always control those things, but before you put a ring on it, before you go and marry the person, think about if this person is going to be an asset in your life and your future family's life, or are they going to be a liability? The sixth biggest wealth killer is your home. A lot of people who buy a home in America have buyer's remorse. I'm not talking about 10% of people or 20% of people or a quarter of home buyers. I'm talking about more than half of home buyers have buyer's remorse after they go out to buy a home. Why? Because many people end up buying a home they can't afford. Why? Because your realtor and your mortgage banker tell you that the home that you buy is the biggest investment you're ever going to make. And because it's an investment in you, your kids, your wealth, your generational wealth, what do? You go out and you buy a little bit bigger. You stretch yourself a little bit more thin. So now more of your budget, more of your income is going to make just your mortgage payments. But the problem with the bigger home is you also got bigger property taxes. The problem with the bigger home is your utility bills are also a little bit more. The problem with the bigger home is your insurance is also a little bit higher. So your expenses are higher. And if you have this nicer home, you can't have that ugly looking bathroom. Now you got to pay to upgrade the bathroom. You want to renovate the basement. You want to refinish your whole kitchen. These things cost money. And many times they cost more money than what you expect. And so now you have to keep paying for these things in your home, which you thought you were just going to pay your monthly mortgage payment and your property taxes and be done. But now you have to keep paying for these upgrades. And then when you feel like you finally finish up the upgrades, your window breaks, or your AC stops working, or your roof starts leaking. And now you got to pay to repair that. And so you constantly have these costs as a homeowner, which you didn't expect. But if you don't prepare for these costs, now you have to eat into the money you were going to invest, the money you were going to save, or maybe you're eating into the money that you were saving, which means you no longer have the ability to invest and save, and you're getting poorer because you bought this home. All of your money is going right into the home, so it becomes a money pit as opposed to something that you thought you were going to just be able to pay off and live a little bit more financially free. So instead of doing that, I want you to be a little bit smarter, buy a home that you can afford, not that the bank says you can afford, that you can comfortably afford. That way now, you don't have to worry about the monthly payment so much, and you continue to invest your money because you know that your investments are going to make you wealthy, not your home. And finally, number 7 is your debt payments. I applaud you if you have stuck with me this far. What I mean here by your debt is not that you're going to go out and get more debt. I don't want you to do that. But when I talk about debt here is you're not using your 20s as a time to aggressively pay down your debt. Now, here's the thing. You want to always be putting money aside to invest. There's 2 different things that you can do to invest this money. You can put this money into the markets, into the real estate market, into the stock market, something to grow this money, or you can use this money to pay down your debt. And depending on where you are, if you have a lot of student loans, if you have a lot of credit card debt, if you have a lot of outstanding debt, you can use your investment money to also pay down some of this debt. And the reality is, if you have a lot of debt, you're going to be paying a lot of interest on that debt. And the faster you can get out of that, the faster you'll have more money to invest, and the faster you'll have to not stress about the money anymore. So use your 20s as a time to, number 1, not get into more debt, but also number 2, aggressively pay down that debt. This is the best time to go through the decade of sacrifice. That means spending less and earning more so you can invest this money like crazy. Invest this money to pay down your debt, invest this money into the markets, that way you can grow your wealth. Use your 20s as a time to also build your wealth. That way, by the time you hit 30, you can hit the ground running and just attack your investments, build your wealth, because that way, by the time you hit 40, now you have this new nest egg, this new income stream from your investments that can pay you without you having to go to work. That's what investing is all about, but that requires you to be financially smart and put in the sacrifice early when everybody else is driving around in the fancy cars, going on the fancy vacations with money that they don't have. When the majority of people make money, they then start to wonder what they should do with this money, versus wealthy people already have a plan in place. So let me ask you a question. If your boss gave you a $1,000 bonus tomorrow, what would you do with that money? And let's make it a little bit more juicy. What if tomorrow, instead of getting a $1,000 bonus from your boss, I write you a check for $1 million? What would you do?